After flying home from my grandma's funeral, I was pulled aside by my aunt who hissed, "Don't even think about sitting up front, you're just the black sheep." I watched from the back row as they passed me over for every speech. 3 years later, I was the only one who knew where Grandma's real will was hidden, and the look on their faces when I read it out loud was something I'll never forget. 3 years ago, I flew back to Springfield, Missouri, with a suit bag in one hand and grief sitting heavy in my chest. My grandmother, the only person in my family who hadn't turned her back on me, had died in her sleep. Peacefully, they said. That didn't make it easier. I got the news from a neighbor of hers. Not my parents. Not my aunts. Not even a damn text from my cousin Bethany. I booked a last-minute flight and got in just a few hours before the funeral. As soon as I stepped inside the church, I felt it, the tension. The quiet glances. Like I didn't belong. I was barely through the lobby when I saw her, Aunt Celeste, standing near the entrance like she was guarding a damn throne. Her mouth curled the second she saw me. Without a word, she walked up, took me by the elbow, and steered me into the side hall. I didn't resist. I knew how she worked. Better to let her have her moment. Once we were alone, she tightened her grip. "Don't even think about sitting up front," she said, low and sharp. "You're just the black sheep. You gave up your place in this family a long time ago." I pulled my arm away. "I'm here to say goodbye to Grandma. That's all." She gave this half smile, fake and condescending, then turned and walked off without another word. I walked into the sanctuary by myself. The front 2 rows were filled with the usual suspects. Aunt Celeste and her perfect kids, Uncle Marty in his oversized suit, my mother sitting with her arms crossed like she'd been forced to be there. Not one person turned around to acknowledge me. I sat in the back row. Alone. I listened as they gave speeches. All of them Bethany with her special poem, Marty stumbling through a story that was clearly rehearsed, even my mom, who hadn't visited Grandma once in her final year. The mic was passed, and passed again. Never once did it come my way. I raised my hand once. Marty looked right at me, then turned away and handed the mic to his daughter. I sat there, fists clenched, jaw tight, and just listened. They shared memories that weren't even true, talking about how they helped Grandma when she was sick, how she always knew how much they loved her. I wanted to scream. These were the same people who ghosted her when she couldn't cook anymore, who refused to bring her groceries when she could barely walk. I know because I was the one driving across town every week to help her. And yet, they erased me like I never existed. After the funeral, they all poured into the parking lot. There were hugs. Smiles. Inside jokes. My mom saw me standing by the curb and gave me a stiff nod before getting into her car. No one invited me to the house afterward. No one asked how I'd been. That was the last I saw of them for 3 years. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that a month before Grandma died, she called me over. She said she didn't have much time left, and there were things she wanted to say. I'd assumed it would just be another one of our chats, old stories, maybe her telling me where she'd hidden the good chocolate. But that day was different. She looked tired. Her hands trembled when she poured the tea. She made me sit down and handed me a floral tin box with little roses on the lid. "I want you to keep this," she said. "But don't open it. Not yet. Not until it's time." I asked what was inside. She just smiled, the kind of smile that made you feel both warm and haunted. "You'll know." I honored that. I took the box back to Denver with me and left it untouched in my closet. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even open it on the anniversary of her death. I just kept living, trying to put distance between me and the hurt. Then, 3 years later, I got a phone call. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. It was Bethany. She sounded choked up. "Grandpa passed last night." My stomach dropped. He'd been in hospice for months. I hadn't visited. Not because I didn't care, but because the last time I did, he didn't know who I was. Alzheimer's had taken everything. But hearing he was gone still hit like a freight train. Then she said something strange. "We're doing a family meeting next month. At Aunt Celeste's. About the estate. You should come." I didn't say yes right away. I didn't trust her. But something in her voice, maybe guilt, maybe nerves, made me curious. I agreed. That night, I opened the tin box. Inside was a sealed envelope with my name on it, written in Grandma's loopy cursive. Underneath that were documents. Legal papers. Her will. And not the one they'd read after she passed. This was different, newer. Dated just 3 weeks before she died. Notarized. Signed. I read every word 3 times. She left everything to me. Her house. Her savings. Her land out near the lake. Every last thing. There was a short letter. "If you're reading this, they've already made it clear you weren't welcome. But you were always my heart. Not because you're perfect, because you stayed. Because you saw me. Because you didn't come around just when it was convenient. I want you to have everything. And I want you to read this out loud." I sat there shaking. It felt like she was in the room with me. I knew what she wanted me to do. I just didn't know if I had the guts to do it. I called a lawyer the next morning. He looked over the will. It was valid. Legal. Binding. She knew exactly what she was doing, he said. This is the final one. And they're going to lose their minds. He wasn't wrong. I showed up at Aunt Celeste's that next month with a manila folder under my arm. The same living room where she once grabbed my wrist and told me I didn't belong. Same house. Same smug expression on her face. They were already dividing Grandpa's stuff when I arrived. Talking numbers. Property. Who was getting the watch, the tools, the stocks. No one even paused when I walked in. It was like walking into a board meeting where everyone assumes you're the janitor. I waited until Celeste said, "All right, let's make it official," and started passing out typed-up agreements. That's when I stood up. "There's something I need to read first," I said. They all turned. Aunt Celeste narrowed her eyes. "This isn't the time." "It is," I said. "Grandma wanted this read out loud." I pulled out her letter. Cleared my throat. And started reading. Her voice came back to life in that room. Her love, her pain, her judgment. You could hear it in every line. They sat in stunned silence. Then I handed the will to Celeste. She snatched it like she was about to tear it in half, but then she read it. Her lips started moving faster. Her eyebrows pulled together. Her face went red. "This can't be real," she snapped. "It is," I said. "She left everything to me. And she made sure it was legal." They exploded. Voices over each other. Uncle Marty accused me of forging it. Bethany asked why she'd do something so cruel. My own mother stood up and said, "She must have been confused." "She wasn't confused," I said. "She knew exactly who you all were. And what you'd do." They said they'd fight it in court. "Go ahead," I said. "I'll win." And I did. The fight that followed wasn't just legal, it was personal. And nasty. Aunt Celeste and Uncle Marty hired some expensive estate lawyer from St. Louis. They tried to argue Grandma wasn't in her right mind when she signed the will. Said she had dementia, that I'd pressured her, even hinted I may have forged her signature. They didn't stop at the court either. They started dragging me online. Facebook posts. Nasty rumors in the Springfield neighborhood groups. Stuff like, "Some people come crawling back just for money," and "Sad what grief will make people do." I didn't respond. Not online. Not in court. I let my lawyer do the talking. But it hurt. Deep. Especially when I found out even my own mother was helping them, giving statements about how Grandma had good days and bad days in her last weeks. That was a lie. I was the one sitting with her. I saw her mind was still sharp. She read newspapers out loud to me. We played cards. She remembered everything, especially how they abandoned her. But it didn't matter what I said. In court, it all came down to proof. And Grandma had given it to me. There was a voice recording in the tin box. I'd almost missed it, an old school tape recorder, like something from the 90s, and a labeled cassette that said, "For court." When we played it for the judge, her voice came through, clear and slow. "I, Dolores Marie Whitaker, am of sound mind. And I want my grandson Jalen to have it all." She named names. Told the story of being ignored by her own children. Talked about how I drove her to the hospital at 3 a.m. when no one else would answer the phone. How they left her Thanksgiving meals on the porch and didn't even ring the bell. The courtroom was silent when it ended. The judge ruled in my favor. But that didn't stop them from losing their minds. Aunt Celeste cornered me outside the courthouse. Her face was red and streaked with tears, but her voice was pure venom. "She manipulated you," she said. "She was a bitter old woman who wanted revenge on all of us, and you were her weapon." I didn't flinch. Or maybe she just finally saw you for who you really are. She slapped me. Right there. Outside the courthouse. People gasped. Someone yelled. I didn't hit back. Just stared at her. "You just proved her right," I said, quietly. Then I walked away. I moved into Grandma's house the next week. They had to hand over the keys. Marty left a dead plant in the mailbox, like a final childish insult. The place was dusty. Cold. Still smelled like the old rose soap she used. But it was mine now. Every room. I started cleaning it up. Not to sell it. To live in it. To bring it back. But then, weird things started happening. The side gate would be open when I knew I'd locked it. Mail would go missing. One morning, I found garbage dumped on the front steps: chicken bones, greasy wrappers, broken glass. I checked the doorbell cam. Nothing. But I knew. They were trying to scare me off. Then came the break-in. I came home from the grocery store to find the back window shattered. They didn't steal anything. But they trashed the place. Ripped up her curtains. Smeared something foul in the fridge. Left a note on the kitchen table: "She's dead. Let her go." I called the cops. They shrugged it off. Said it could have been local kids. Yeah. Sure. I installed cameras. Locked everything up tighter. Started carrying pepper spray. I wasn't leaving. I wasn't scared. But I was angry now. They couldn't stand that I got what she wanted me to have. They couldn't handle losing the control they held over her for decades. So I dug deeper. I started going through the attic, looking for anything else she might have left me. That's when I found the real twist. A locked box. No key. I had to pry it open with a crowbar. Inside were letters. Dozens. All from Grandma to her lawyer. And in them, the truth. Grandma had started to write a book. A memoir. A full story about her life and her family. It was all there. The years of abuse from Grandpa. The way Celeste manipulated her into signing over power of attorney, then used it to empty half her savings. The loan Marty never repaid. The time my mother left her at the hospital because she had a nail appointment. There were bank statements. Photos. Even voice recordings. She had documented everything. She had planned to publish it right before she died. But her health went faster than expected. So now it was in my hands. I made copies. Gave them to my lawyer. I didn't know yet what I'd do with them. But one thing was clear: this wasn't just revenge. This was war. And I was the only one still holding the truth. I didn't sleep much after finding those letters. I stayed up late reading every page, every word. Some of it was hard to stomach. I'd known my family was cold, selfish, petty, but I hadn't known just how deep the rot went. In one of the letters, Grandma wrote, "I should have cut them off years ago. But I always hoped they'd change. I let fear guide me. Fear of being alone, fear of being called cruel. But Jalen, you made me feel like I was still someone. That's why this is all for you." She'd trusted me to do something with this. To finish what she started. So I made a plan. I didn't want just to win. I wanted the truth out. I wanted them to feel what I felt sitting in the back row of that funeral, erased, humiliated, powerless. First, I contacted a local journalist. Springfield wasn't a big media town, but there was a woman named Marla Dean who ran a well-read regional blog. She covered family court corruption, elder abuse, estate fights, all of it. I sent her the letters. The photos. The recordings. Everything. She called me in tears the next day. "This story needs to be told," she said. "And it's gonna shake your family like a damn earthquake." I gave her the green light. Then I sat back and waited. The first post went live the next week. Title: "She died with a secret and it destroyed her family." It exploded. Comments poured in. People who knew my grandma from church were shocked. Neighbors were angry. Strangers from across Missouri started sharing it. Then the second part came out, focused on how Aunt Celeste had used her power of attorney to drain bank accounts, how Marty used threats to keep Grandma from changing her original will, how my own mother hadn't even visited her once in hospice. They tried to deny it publicly, loudly. Celeste posted a Facebook rant calling the article slander. Marty threatened to sue Marla. My mom sent me a 2-line text that just said, "You've gone too far. You'll regret this." But it was too late. Marla wasn't backing down. Everything in the story was backed with evidence. Scanned bank statements. Audio recordings. Photos. And then the story hit national. Someone from a syndicated TV news show picked it up for a special segment on elder neglect and family betrayal. They asked to interview me on camera. I agreed, but I didn't use my full name. I didn't need more harassment. Still, the damage was done. Marty's business lost 3 major clients. Celeste got pushed out of her church women's group. My mother, who worked part-time for a local school, was quietly removed from the PTA board. That's when the real twist came. One morning, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. The envelope was thick. Inside were old photographs, black and white, with dates written on the back. I didn't recognize the names at first until I realized they were not from my grandma's side. They were from my grandfather's past. Before Grandma. Before Springfield. And what they showed was disturbing. One photo showed a much younger version of him standing outside a building in Kansas, next to a teenage girl. Another showed him holding a baby that wasn't his. And the final letter explained it all. Grandpa had a secret family before Grandma. One he'd never claimed. A woman he'd left behind in Wichita after she got pregnant. And that woman had filed for child support but never saw a dollar. The letter ended with a name and phone number. A man named Paul Whitaker. His son. My mom's half-brother. I didn't know what to do. This wasn't just some drama, this was history being rewritten. I called the number. A man in his late 60s answered. Quiet voice. I told him who I was. There was silence for a long time. Then he said, I always wondered if I had family out there. Guess I finally do. We met 2 weeks later at a diner halfway between Springfield and Wichita. He showed me documents, birth certificates, old letters, photos. All proof. All real. Grandpa had lied about everything. Pretended he started a life fresh with Grandma. Never mentioned the woman he left behind, or the child. And suddenly, everything made more sense. The bitterness. The controlling behavior. The way he manipulated my grandmother into silence. The way my mother became so cold and defensive, like she was raised to protect a lie at all costs. I went home that night and pulled out one of Grandma's last letters. Near the bottom, she'd written something that hadn't hit me until now. There are some things I never said out loud. Things I regret carrying for him. But I hope one day you'll learn it all. Then maybe you'll understand why I stayed quiet. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was revelation. And the house I now owned? It sat on land that once belonged to Grandpa's side of the family. Which meant if Paul could prove he was a legal heir, he might have claim. I called my lawyer again. The next move was going to be big. After I met Paul, everything changed. I thought getting the house and estate was the end of it. I thought making the truth public would be enough. But the more I learned, the more I realized Grandma had left me more than just a house or money. She left me the full weight of the family's buried sins. And now I had to decide what to do with all of it. Paul was kind, soft-spoken, and patient. He wasn't looking for revenge. He didn't even want the land. But he did want to be acknowledged. He wanted the Whitakers, my side of the family, to finally face what his mother went through. What he went through. I asked him to come to Springfield. And I asked him to bring the original documents. We planned something quietly. Carefully. See, after the story went viral, a lot of people wanted to make things right. Churches, community boards, even people who used to turn their backs on Grandma. So when I offered to host a memorial tribute at the local community center in her name, people showed up. Dozens. Some with flowers, some just curious. My family came too. Not because they missed Grandma, but because they knew the community was watching. They needed to save face. Aunt Celeste showed up in a black blazer like she was still grieving. Uncle Marty shook hands and handed out fake smiles. My mother stood near the back, arms folded, avoiding my eyes. I waited until the end. Then I got up on stage. I started by thanking everyone for coming. Then I said, "There's someone else here who deserves to be acknowledged." And I called Paul up. He walked up slowly, holding an envelope. There was a quiet murmur through the room. My family's smiles disappeared. "This is Paul Whitaker," I said. "He's my grandfather's son. My mother's half-brother. And someone who's been ignored by this family for 65 years. You could feel the air suck out of the room. Celeste stood up. "This is disgusting," she hissed. "This is not what this is supposed to be." I kept going. I told the whole story. The other family. The abandoned woman in Kansas. The legal proof. The documents. I passed them out to people in the crowd. Then Paul spoke. Just a few words. "I'm not here to break up anything," he said. "I just want the truth to finally live in the open. My mother died thinking she was nothing. But she mattered. And I'm here because I matter too." People clapped. Some stood. Celeste looked like she wanted to explode. And then, for the final blow, I announced what I was doing with the house and the money. I'm donating the full value of my grandmother's estate to two causes. One that supports elder abuse victims, and one that helps families of unacknowledged children collect back child support and legal aid. And I'm transferring the house title to Paul. Dead silence. Uncle Marty stood up, red-faced. "You can't do that. You don't even know him." I turned to him. "I know him better than I know you. He never lied to me. Never used me. Never made Grandma feel small." Celeste stepped forward, screaming now. "You ungrateful little bastard. She raised you, and this is how you repay her? Giving away her house to a stranger?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "The house doesn't belong to you. It never did. You left her to rot. You spat on her memory. And now the world knows it. She tried to slap me again. This time, I caught her wrist. Touch me again, I said, and I'll sue you for assault in front of half of Springfield. She backed away. Her mouth trembled, but no words came out. My mom didn't say a word. She just walked out. That night, I signed the title transfer paperwork. Paul tried to refuse it at first, but I insisted. I don't want it anymore, I said. It holds too much pain. But it deserves to be lived in by someone who never got a seat at the table. In the following months, the fallout spread like wildfire. Celeste was kicked off every charity board she served on. Her name became poison in town. Nobody wanted to be associated with her. Marty's construction business was investigated for shady tax filings. Turns out, someone anonymously forwarded a bunch of financial documents to the IRS. Wonder who that was. My mother moved out of town. Last I heard, she was living in a trailer in Arkansas, still bitter, still alone. And me? I took nothing from the estate. Not a penny. I kept working my job in Denver. I still have Grandma's old letters. Her tea tin. And her voice, every now and then, in the back of my mind. I didn't destroy my family. They destroyed themselves. I just lit the match they handed me.